in a hearing to follow. As for the cost must follow the result. Both parties asked for cost, including the costs of two counsel. Accordingly, the application is struck from the roll. The applicant is to pay the costs, including the costs of two counsel. The court will adjourn.
When I met in the struggle in the African National Congress, in particular in the ANC Women's Section and later Women's League, Nosiviwe's integrity is intact, and South Africa will get to know that. What is very sad, which is expressing itself, is how people that work in sectors that are very critical in society comply with and cooperate with agendas that you can only regard as, people who have lost sense, who have lost their ability to think straight. Now, I'm saying the sad thing, though, that is being proved as one watches what's going on, is how people who work in sectors like the one you work in also learned their skills to pursuing agendas that can only be described as despicable and dirty. That's all I want to say. Yesterday, what relieved me after hearing the news, because I had last seen her the evening of the day when her house had been raided, and I was satisfied that she was solid, she was calm, she was not scared, she was not going anywhere, and I thought she was going to be leaving on Thursday to lead a delegation to IPU, because the IPU is a very important forum for parliaments of the world. And she has played a critical role at the IPU, in particular in campaigning for the first African woman to be the president of the IPU, an international body of all parliaments of the world. So she's done a very good job there, as she did a good job in defense when it came to raising the issues of women that were arising in the sector of defense. Now I get to hear that no, she had to reconsider the traveling, because among things that were being said by those that are handling those matters was that because she was going to be traveling abroad, she was a flight risk. So she's here. They now have to go there and say what their case is. What are their charges? They raided her house. They violated her privacy. And she allowed them to do that in calmness and in dignity. And I just think they should be ashamed of themselves, all of them.
What do you say to people who are saying there must be accountability irrespective of your standing in the community?
Accountability for what? You must say what it is that you want a person to account for. So sure, there must be accountability indeed, but come and say what is it that you are looking for, on the basis of what?
You're always on the right track. I suppose this is an indication for you that this particular matter as well, you will be on the right side of history when it is finalized. But let's talk about some of the issues that the National Assembly Speaker is raising. She says that, the one thing that she wanted to get was a confirmation indeed that she was to be arrested, because she says she was hearing about it in the media, and as far as she's concerned, she had not seen actually a warrant right up until this court case, and she realized that even then there is no warrant actually that could have been presented at the court at this point. Two, it was the issue of the availability of her lawyer. What do you make of that process that she seems to have taken?
Well, you have heard also the side of the defendant, that is the NPA, and the police who were investigating, that they have been in contact with her and her lawyer even before they did what they did. So someone is not telling us the truth here. I hope one day that these ministers of the ANC would have taken taken an oath should know what is the meaning of taking an oath. You will recall that she said to the Standing Committee on Defense in 2021, after I reported her, she said she has got nothing to do, she is fearing nothing, but she was refusing to go and face the music. So something has to be told to whoever is going to be a minister after the elections this year. We need people who are trustworthy to hold these positions. What if, for instance, the courts found that the prima facie evidence the NPA has is quite correct? What would it say to us? Meaning, therefore, we need to screen whoever is going to hold a public office in future.
Yeah. It's have you, of course, in this particular instance, that, of course, this court did not delve into the strength or the weakness of that prima facie evidence, and she still maintains that the case is weak. In fact, she says she's looking forward to the court process, because then at least now she'll be able to get a full disclosure. And her suspicion is that the whistleblower didn't make a strong enough case.
Well, I cannot argue on her case. Let that be said by a judge. The big judge will be in a position to offer her and the whistleblower an opportunity to present their case. But the behavior of the speaker tended to raise some suspicions in the manner in which she handled this case.
What do you make of the manner in which, I suppose, she is being processed, right? We hear that, as you say, they've been in conversation with her for a very long time. There was some kind of suggestion that she must go there on the 22nd of March. She then says, no, my lawyers are busy in Durban and they will only be available on the 3rd of April, insisting that she requires this kind of...
I'm out in France.
Yeah,
I'll come back and
I'm on my way out.
Then later she says, no, Minister, the speaker is off to USA, and the police went to the airport and checked, and found that she's still inside the country.
Right.
What kind of a person like that? This kind of behavior.
This kind of behavior, and see, there's a bending over backwards to accommodate. I suppose, does it come with the status of being a speaker?
No, not at all. So the courts have told us that when police are doing their job, everybody is equal before the law.
The business is suspended for the next 10 minutes. Honorable members, hold on. Business of the house. Animal out.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Speaker, myself and the President of the EFF participated in this process from its inception. The President of the EFF would have been here to participate in this debate if he was not persecuted by the alliance of the ANC and the white right-wingers who have now forced him to appear in court on frivolous charges. The report we are required to endorse today is a product of a process that has been grossly unfair to the public protector and which has been nothing more than a vindictive political witch hunt against the PP. As the old English saying goes, in matters of conscience, the law of majority does not work. Here today, Speaker, the uninformed majority seeks to railroad all of us to impeach a person not liked by the establishment. Here today, we see Parliament being used to break the law in order to protect the powerful. This report was hurried and ignored basic principles of fairness that are normal and ought not to be negotiated in a process such as this one. It is a clear demonstration of the determination of the chairperson to move with speed to impeach the PP regardless of the litany of procedural mishaps committed by the committee since inception. The hurried nature in which this report has been prepared lays credence to the view held by the PP that this is a frivolous political process meant to punish a person who is not compliant with the dominant narrative which seeks to uphold or hold up the current head of state as a saint. Apart from the many procedural own goals, Speaker, by the chairperson and the committee, the most important issue at the moment is that the PP has not had legal representation in the committee since the termination of the funding for legal fees by the acting PP since the end of March. The acting PP's belated offering of a 4 million rand has been mired in controversy, which has not allowed the public protector space to have legal representation. Firstly, the acting PP indicated that Advocate Mkhwebane must appoint her legal representative herself and manage the additional 4 million that the office of the PP made available as she wishes. This was unheard of and placed the PP in a very precarious position because she is here to account for her performance as the PP and not as a private individual. Secondly, this committee railroaded the PP to have the state attorney as the attorney of record. This was done despite the PP having raised concerns about the conflict of interest of the state attorney. This was disregarded by the committee again, further exposing the PP to a state-sanctioned witch hunt whose figurehead has always been the chairperson. When the PP finally managed to appoint Chinese attorneys, the committee refused to give them time to acquaint themselves with the record. On what basis were the attorneys going to brief counsel if they themselves did not have an opportunity to study the record and get to know the case? As Speaker, Rule 129AD requires that this committee must conduct its proceedings in a reasonable and procedurally fair manner. You can never claim that the conduct of the chair was reasonable or unfair in the manner he has handled this issue. From the initial directives that the chairperson issued right up to the end, this process has been grossly unfair to the PP. The findings in the report that the PP demonstrated incompetence in relation to the charges against what she faced were therefore predetermined. This is the mandate that the chairperson and the evidence leaders were given, and these findings were made without affording the PP with her constitutionally enshrined rights to legal representation. The fact that the report mentioned that the process will be moved after the term of this PP expires in October is proof enough that this process is no longer about justice, but about punishing an individual. Parliament can be reduced to a tool for punishing individual who seeks to disagree with the powerful. We therefore reject the report and we reject the political witch hunt initiated by the DA and supported by the ANC alliance to punish Advocate Mkhwebane in order to protect Mr. Ramaphosa. We reiterate our stance as the EFF that we reserve our right to take this report and the illegal adoption of this report by this Parliament on judicial review, and we invite all interested parties to join us in doing so, including Advocate Mkhwebane herself and all justice-loving individuals in this country. I thank you.
Enkosi Speaker, kuzungula. Enkosi. This action to seek to remove a sitting head of a Chapter 9 institution will do more harm than good for the country. Effectively, the DA-led ruling party is sending a strong message that if you are in public service and you don't toe the line of the ruling party, the party will embarrass and chase you out of office. Never has it happened anywhere in the world where a sitting ombudsman is removed, especially after finding against the powerful presidents and ministers. Who's next in this hateful brutality? Is it going to be IEC commissioners, judges in the electoral court? Basically, everyone who dares to uphold the law and constitution will be met with the wrath of the DA-led ruling party. This action is clearly set out to make independent Chapter 9 institutions to work in fear. It's either you rule in favor of the most powerful sections of society or you'll be punished. Yes, all people must account. Hence we say the removal of a public protector should be based on strong and justifiable grounds to prevent any erosion of this vital office. The process to determine the fitness of the public protector was filled with bias against Advocate Mkhwebane. It is a fact that Advocate Mkhwebane from the onset had to fight up until the level of the Constitutional Court for legal representation in the inquiry. The bribery allegations against 3 members of the ANC is still under investigation by the SAPS. How can Parliament proceed with impeachment, yet these damning allegations that erode the credibility of the process are still under investigation? The committee, once more, was in contempt of court when it proceeded to work while Advocate Mkhwebane was not legally represented by lawyers of a choice. The process was unjustifiably rushed. The changing method for Advocate Mkhwebane from oral to written testimony is an example of how eager the ruling party wanted to finish this before her term ends so that it gets to this point of removing her. It is also common cause that the change from oral to written testimony is something that was prophesied by the late Honorable Jomat Peterson, which means indeed there was a predetermined outcome. A process to remove a public protector must be free from bias and actions that erode the credibility of the process. With that being said, we as the ATM are not going to support a hateful resolution that is akin to the apartheid parliament creating a law to keep Robert Sobukwe in prison indefinitely. To Advocate Mkhwebane, uZimu akukhusele lenkohlakala yenziwa yi-DA ekhokhela i-ANC ayizuphumelela.
Madam Speaker, the position of the Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania on the recommendations for removal of Advocate Mkhwebane from the public office is crystal clear. We do not support the recommendation. We definitely voting against it. The ruling party is exposing itself for everyone to see their ugly hatred of women. They punish one of their own severely in order to introduce another timid and useless one of their own, whom they can use like a puppet. Advocate Mkhwebane is used as a pawn in an internal power struggle of the ANC. She is a strong African woman who is not ready to go down without a fight. He has made the ruling party to rig the rules in a sham inquiry and impose their factional tendencies to punish a woman who truly intended to make the public protector's office an institution that works for public at grassroots level. The masses of the people continue to have many confrontations with the government that has no conscience and no real interest in the affairs of their constituencies. In our view, the ruling party is no longer with the letter and spirit of the Constitution. They have taken an oath to serve and protect. The internal conflict with the ruling party is overlapping into the state machinery and into usurping powers of Chapter 9 institutions, such as the public protector, to impose a sinister agenda-based psychological attack on a woman they cannot control. The removal of public protector is based on the maneuvers to gaslight an independent woman of substance. This is lack of respect for African womanhood. The PAC of Azania will oppose the ANC of South Africa and DA for removing Advocate Mkhwebane.
Thank you, Honorable Nyotso.
Honorable Speaker and honorable members, in July 2019, Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane committed the cardinal sin of doing her job too well. She wrote a report on an investigation into allegations of a violation of the Executive Ethics Code through an improper relationship between the President and African Global Operations, formerly known as BOSASA. The ANC and DA have laid a charge against her for doing this. The evidence we have had in the Section 194 inquiry is that certain companies had donated money to the CR17 campaign. If you want to see proof of the names of the people who received payments in the CR17 saga, here it is. Read it and you will see the relationship between these companies and senior ANC leaders and key operators. The question why the president went to court to seal these records is to hide where these monies came from. These companies include, amongst others, Bosasa, Motlakeng, Maverick State, Linked Environment Services, and Behavior Change Agency, a company which featured in the linked bank statements, which later got a contract for the presidency's COVID-19 communications campaign. It wasn't the usual suspects like the big companies, but it was companies that were systematically pilfered through government departments and municipalities who funded this campaign. It is ironic that former DA leader Musi Maimane, who raised the alarm and took the matter to the public protector, found himself out in the cold, and now the DA is in cahoots with the ANC to remove Advocate Mkhwebane. Is this why Maimane was sacrificed? It seems Advocate Mkhwebane had hit a raw nerve with her 2019 report, and that the ANC has closed ranks and with a vengeance, and we are at the juncture where they are merely getting rid of her for doing her job too well. Finally, the House should come up with a mechanism to establish which companies are doing business with government and had donated to this campaign, and why monies had ended up in some cabinet members' pockets, as shown in this document. The UDM, therefore, categorically disagree with any course of action that sees Advocate Mkhwebane's departure from office. So mkwati ke sithi into yakuthi njenguphethe ukhokhele jonga le mali yaqokelwa kwi-State Department kwezinye ministers zakho niyeke lo muntu obesenza umsebenzi wakhe amasela la